back in Sydney, putting together my story of completing Tour Aotearoa this year. At this point it was the 14th of February. I was scheduled to start on the 15th. Karen and I were in Pukenui, which is about an hour from Cape Reinga. Had intended to relax and enjoy a couple of drinks and enjoy the cafe and bar over the road, but of course there's been no power for the last 2 days, so it was an interesting couple of days of crackers, cheese, occasional cold beer, and cold baked beans. Not the ideal start, but we've had the go ahead from Shane from Map Progress that everything was ready to go on the 15th, which is tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. from Cape Reinga. So end of day one, completed 90 Mile Beach. That and the road going down to it was basically done 100 Ks. It was a tough day, surprised me. I didn't know what to expect obviously, but the access of the stream going down to 90 Mile Beach, that was tough. Soft sand, deep water, and about 5 Ks of it, yeah. Anyhow, so basically on the beach itself was a bit of soft sand here and there, but pretty good surface. No real headwind, which is apparently can really make for a tough day. Actually gets a bit boring after a while because there's nothing to see apart from more sand. Anyhow, eventually got down to Aotearoa at the end, staying in a cabin there. Basically no power again, which was a little bit annoying, but so cold baked beans again. Power came on later that night, so I managed to recharge the phones, etc., and lights and battery pack and all that sort of stuff, so that was all good. Yeah, I was feeling a bit crook that night, like really, yeah, quite run down, which surprised me immensely, but I think it's more to do with the fact that obviously there's only so many baked beans you can bloody well eat cold. And yeah, just not the ideal prep, and I think it was a bit deceiving how difficult the day was. Anyhow, that was the day. Day two was Aotearoa to Aotearoa. Yeah, it was actually a tough day again, mainly because a lot of it was gravel, a lot of hills, a lot of long climbs. Could ride them okay, but just long, 5-6 k's, a couple of them were, which is just draining. I did actually manage to get some food. Lunch was a 4 square that had a generator going, and just made some chicken rolls, which was absolutely awesome. Got to Aotearoa, and the motel owner had rung me, and basically obviously dealing with more major issues than her motel, because she was in the Coromandel, so I'd hate to think what she was going through. Let me know there was no power, and I was happy to cancel it. Obviously I needed somewhere to sleep, so stayed in this nice motel there with no power. Again, had my baked beans, but very fortunately the motel manager was for some friends who were cooking up food somewhere. Anyhow, I got some chicken, which was nice, and then opposite were 3 guys, Doug, Robbie and Julian, who were doing the tour, and got chatting to them, which was good, and potentially had made found a place with them at Kawakawa outside of Auckland to stay, which I'll talk more about later, which was really saved me a bit of a hard day's ride that I wasn't looking forward to in a few days. Anyhow, tough day, was really looking forward to somewhere where I had some power and get to some decent food, but slept like a log. Day 3, Aotearoa to Dargaville. This road had been closed up until, well, last night, which in this case had been the 16th of Feb, so quite pleased it was all open. You could see a lot of slip damage, a lot of down trees, and that it just basically chainsaws through them to the side, half the road blocked, this sort of thing, but traffic was going through, not there was much of it. Some of the highlights of the day really, you're going down this back road, gravel road, for no reason you go down there normally if you live there, I'd expect, and you come to Donnelly's Crossing, which is a bit of an institution. I didn't know what to expect with it, but it's just a classic. They're out there calling your name, and here is this old caravan, and I could say a bit of a lean-to almost, place, and I had fresh sushi. Still trying to work that one out. But basically you help yourself to all the food and tell them what you had, and they pay at the end. So I had coffee, first coffee in a number of days, sushi, and then I had mince pies, and then I had cake, and then I had sandwiches. I ate, basically, to put it quite bluntly. Enjoyed it immensely, then carried on to Dargaville, which had full power. Went to the local pub, basically had a pint of beer and had a pint of Coke, and I had a steak and veggies and felt $1 million afterwards. It was a great day. Day 4 basically was from Dargaville through to just next to Helensville. Basically this involved about 70 odd k's down to Aotearoa Point. I probably pronounced it wrong. You get a ferry across the Kaipara Harbour for 4 hours and get out basically right next to Helensville. I left early in the morning, as we usually do. I like early morning cycling. It's very peaceful, though it's dark. The sun doesn't come up usually for an hour and a half, 2 hours after I leave, but there's nothing on the road and it's quiet, and I'm slower than a number of others. So it was pretty much a gravel road. It wasn't a great ride there, but it was fairly scenic and that sort of thing. Sat around. The ferry was quite cool. Got a bit boring, but it really is a massive harbour and there's not much there. Got into the motel at the other side, and just half an hour before the 4 Square closed, so stocked up and did the old good meal, basically of rice and veggies and chicken and all bunched together, and the usual Fijoa juice and a few other bits and pieces. I was feeling good. It was going to be a big day the next day through to Auckland, which was going to be good. drive was basically Helensville through to Kawakawa Bay. Kawakawa Bay became a good option after meeting who I mentioned a few days ago when I met Doug, Robbie and Julian, as they had use of a house basically at Kawakawa Bay. I had originally planned and booked to stay at Manukau, which I wasn't happy about because it was going to be a very short day, and the next day I wanted to get as far as possible down the Harrogate Rail Trail because I was going to Mangakino the following day. I asked them if I could just put a tent up, not that I've ever used my tent and not that I hope to ever use my tent, sitting in the front there. They had no dramas, and the owner said no problem at all, so that was great. Accommodation had been planned at Kawakawa Bay. I left Helensville very early, over some hill in the middle of nowhere. Anyhow, there's a photo of it, looks like lights and cones because the road had been closed, and then obviously all the locals, it looks like it pushed all the road cones aside because basically it was a branch that anybody could have moved, so it was sort of open. Went through to Auckland, surprised how easy it was to get through to Auckland. You basically got down to the motorway and just on a cycleway all the way through, virtually up to the top of Eden Park. Fantastic views, then down and saw into Cromwell Park and had sort of brunch lunch at a very nice cafe, which I was obviously completely underdressed in my fluoro in, but that was okay with good friends Mark and Cheryl. That was great, and then continued on down cycleway all the way again, virtually past the airport, then out to the coast via Clevedon to Kawakawa Bay, where I had my usual rice and chicken, but of course the person informally let them use the place, had beers in the fridge, and they had a lasagna and all sorts, so I actually ate really well. Didn't have to use the tent because I had a spare bed, so it was a top day and I was feeling very, very good. Day 6. This started at Kawakawa Bay. The guys were still in bed. I left at 5:30 in the morning. Basically, there was only really one hill, which was about 20 k's going up and over and out to the coast, and then it was dead flat. So much so it was ridiculous. I got through to. I originally was going to be staying at Aotearoa. Got there at 1:30 and going, well, this is silly. So I changed all the accommodation around and booked in at Matamata. Very little accommodation at Matamata, but anyhow, paid too much money, but anyhow, you got what you got. That was fine. Dead flat, pretty boring rail trail, I must admit. The Hauraki Plains, it's just like, really? even just like a turn somewhere would do. But anyhow, it was a good day, 150 something or other kilometres. Pretty tired at the end, but went to the pub and had the usual pint of Coke, pint of beer and steak, and yes, veggies and salad this time. So no, very good day, which I really needed to have because I was going down to Mangakino the next day, and I really wanted to. That was going to be a long day if I hadn't gone to Matamata. So quite happy about that, and again, starting to feel really, really good. The only thing was, I'm drinking a lot of fluid. I mean, I've done a lot of events before, but I'm drinking like 5-6 litres in a day. Just it's fine. It just seems a lot of fluid. Certainly being that I was carrying more than what I had in the bottles. So I was carrying over 3 litres with spare bottles and that sort of thing at a time. Even though there's plenty of towns, you're certainly out drinking a lot of fluid. Day 7 was Matamata to Mangakino. An old mate of mine from school I saw last year asked if he could join me, and he trained up to join me he's going to meet me in Mangakino that afternoon. He's going to join me for 2 days of the timber trail, Russell was. So that was nice. Nice ride for most of it. The last sort of chunk of it was actually you go through the Waikato River Trail, which was lovely, really alternating, very quiet, very scenic, following the Waikato River obviously. And then the trail itself had been closed just due to all the rainfall and the weather that I'd had for about 15-20 kilometres, and apparently that's very, very hilly, and once you get over it, you're over it. So they did a bypass around the sealed road, so that was okay. Got into Mangakino, which was lovely. Saw Russell, stayed in a nice lodge there. Very happy. Russell had cooked up a storm at home, which is whakatane for him, and brought it across in his car, and yeah, I was quite ready to go. Was looking forward to the timber trail the next day. Russell probably doesn't get up as early as what I did, but he did that morning, and was very grateful he did it. And we started on our, it's only 82 k's to, we're staying in a Timber Trail Lodge, which was a nice little bit of luxury, I must admit. The first bridge which you see, and there's quite a bit of video there, which is like wire, that is just a nightmare. Me going across, I basically got ripped one of my rear bags. It's been scraping against the wire. Yeah, it's not an experience I'd want to do too many times. Neither of us really enjoyed that. We sort of looked back at it and going, really? Anyhow, apart from that, we did the first half of the Timber Trail going up to the lodge. It's a tough climb. I actually came off the bike. No big deal. I was virtually stopped and just sort of went around a slight bend, and there was a branch that I wasn't expecting, and I just couldn't quite sort of stop the bike tipping over. It affected the alignment. Obviously the rear derailleur hanger was slightly bent. The gears all worked, but they just, the chain was slipping on a couple of gears, but that was all fine. Anyhow, a little bit not too sad and sorry about it, which is the way it was. But we got the Timber Trail Lodge, and yeah, a couple of other guys were there. I'd met on the way, and they have a big sort of central area there, and yeah, there was beers and a nice meal and breakfast the next morning. Yeah, it was a fabulous way to finish the day. Yeah, and just stunning where you were, absolutely stunning. Day 9, which was Timber Trail Lodge, which we enjoyed a breakfast at, through to Tamaranui. Second half of the trail, a lot easier in the first half. Basically, it's an old tram line. You can see it very clearly in a lot of parts of it. So sort of gradual downhill, and any uphill was very gradual as well. So actually quite enjoyable. A couple of amazing sort of bit of structures there, where the tram line's gone around and around, yeah, which is quite cool. So we quite enjoyed that. Basically, Russell then at the end of it, the trail jumped on a shuttle, and that took him back to Mangakino to get his car. I then carried on to Tamaranui, which was only like another 25 k's. Fairly easy ride, a few hills, but it was sealed road, which just seemed like luxury compared to what I've had the previous few days. So that was quite nice. Early, sort of, there by 2:30 in the afternoon in Tamaranui. So that was fine. Had to make a decision in Tamaranui what I was going to do. Basically, the option from Tamaranui is that you go up to Ofango and then you go down what they call the bridge to nowhere. But to get to the bridge to nowhere, there's a few hours of basically hike a bike through clay, and there'd been a lot of rain, so it was a bit of a mess. It's not really recommended for heavily laden bikes unless you're really like a mountain biker, and I'm not, obviously, road biking background. So I decided to take the alternate route, which basically same distance, but go to Ofango, then you go down the number 4 highway and then go across to Pipariki. You do the bridge to nowhere, you actually get a jet boat for half an hour at the end of it, because it's a dead end of the river, and you get a jet boat down to Pipariki, which would be kind of cool, but I would be there forever, and I think my bike would be completely ruined. So quite happy about the decision. So Russell turned up and went down the RSL and had a steak, a Coke and a beer again. It was very, very pleasant indeed. Day 10, Tamarunui to Pipariki. As I stated, from the previous day, I decided I would take the alternate route down State Highway 4. I had a great day, basically. Went to Ofango, fantastic cafe, had a huge breakfast, and was there by 8 o'clock in the morning. And then went down State Highway 4, which is reasonably quiet. A few hills to start, and then it's just like this fairly steady sort of down, which you climb quite a bit. Going from Tamarunui to Ofango, and then it's just a little bit more, and then it's just this gradual downhill, and then down to basically Ratahi, and then you head out to the coast, and that's fairly undulating. But I was at Pipariki at the campground. They had a little cafe there. Again, I ate. Yeah, a nice little cabin, and I was going okay. And I knew the next day I was going to have a fairly easy day into Wanganui. Bike was making some noises, okay, that I knew the gears weren't changing 100%. I thought, okay, that's okay, they were working, but the chain would slip off on the big gear hog. But I had a fair bit of noise coming when I was freewheeling from the hub. No issue, because it's just noise, it's not under load or anything. But I was looking forward to getting to Wanganui, by about lunchtime, going to a bike shop and just having a chat to them and asking if they could just sort of straighten up the derailleur hanger for me.